Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Stencil Saturday design. So this week I decided to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about doing some designs that might be good that you could use in borders. And this one, you can see that again we are using my Hourglass stencil, and I just pieced some fabric together. So this is our border, and I wanted to use this stencil, and you can see here that this is how big the stencil squares are, and so it really did not fit in this border. But I wanted to use this anyways so that you can see how easy it is, that if you have a stencil and you want to use it in a particular space and it doesn't actually fit perfectly, it really isn't a big deal. And if you look, you can see here what I did was I centered the stencil, the row of the design, in the center. And then this one's a little bigger, of course, because this would be the edge of the quilt. And once the binding's on there, it would leave a 1/4 inch. And so I stitched a 1/4 inch up here. So now it just kind of, I guess it kind of frames out that border. And now you can just stitch whatever design it is you wanted to stitch with that stencil. So I went ahead and stitched these 2 lines. Might as well, you know, I like to do that first. Now I'm just going to start right here. And what I'm going to do first is go ahead and stitch the actual shape itself. And then I'm going to add quilting to the center. And I'm going to stitch this kind of, there will be a little bit of backtracking, not a whole lot. And I'm going to stitch it kind of like a figure 8. So I'm going to go over here, restitch this line, and then go back up to this corner. So I'm going to come down, across the center, down to the bottom corner. Now the other option, you could retrace on these lines, but I find it easier to go straight to keep it right on that line. I'll just stitch over to this next corner, and then I'm going to stitch the same thing up here and restitch. Whoop, that's my chipped side of my ruler. Across here, and then to this other corner. So what I'm going to do now is I want to add echo lines to these. So I'm going to do a 1/4 inch echo here, but a 1/2 inch at the top. So for this one, I'm going to scoot over here, and I see my hopping foot hit that line. I can put my ruler there because I know that's going to stitch a 1/4 inch away. And by eye, I'm not good at judging the 1/2 inch. Just kind of watch till I'm a 1/4 inch away. Line my ruler up on the first line. And at this one, the 1/4 inch, I can just watch for my hopping foot to touch that line of stitching. I'm going to do that 2 more times. 1/4 inch. Whoop, went too far. Actually, I was only going to do 2 of these. I see my hopping foot touch. Switch the ruler. So now I want to do this same basic idea, but going out that direction. So I'm going to restitch back down this line. So I'm just going to go backwards, back down to here. Scoot over. And now I'm just going to do 1/4 inch lines, 2, because I don't have much room in here. So 2 should fit. Yeah, it'll fit in there. Okay, so now I find myself in the center, but that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and backtrack my way out of here. Come out. And I'll go ahead and use this line right here to travel down to the bottom. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So I'm going to do a 1/4 inch. Half inch. 1/4 inch. Repeat that one more time. Retrace this line because now I want to do 2 coming the other direction. Quarter inch, 1/4 inch. See, there we go. Then I'm going to go ahead and go out here. You can just retrace on your stitching line into this next one, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to stitch this like a figure 8. I'm going to go here. Trace down through the center and back to this corner. And I'll just repeat that process. But you see, I don't have a bottom line to use, so I am going to go ahead and stitch this line. And this really, I mean, this is just the path I'm using. It's not necessarily the only path. You may see one that seems to make more sense to you, and that is fine. 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, half inch, 1/4, backtrack so I can do the center. Now you could continue with more just in the same direction. I just like the idea. It kind of makes them look like they weave together, like those center ones are coming out from under the other ones. And I'm going to go ahead and sneak out of here. Doesn't matter really which way you go, just so you get to a line that you can travel on. So one thing I will say, and I don't know if you can tell in the picture or not, I did choose a contrasting thread, a little bit contrasting so you can see what I'm doing, but it is a 60 weight thread because I knew that I needed to backtrack a fair amount. So that is something to consider. If you were going to do this, you wouldn't probably want to choose a thick thread, because you'd see the backtracking too much. I'm just going to leave my ruler there so I can get back to the bottom and do 2/4 inch echoes. And after the first 2 or 3, you generally will get a kind of the flow of it and be able to get them done a little bit quicker. And you would have one other option if you look at this right now. You know, maybe you want, I kind of like the idea of these long triangles being unquilted, but you easily could fill these in if you wanted. You know, at this point, because to move to the next one, you could just do a fill in here to help you travel, but that's not what I'm going to do on this one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish out these last 3. Okay, now that I finished those, and you'll notice over here, it took me a minute, but after one repeat I realized that I marked this last one the wrong direction. So we're just gonna go ahead and take a look at this finished one, and we'll just forget about this one. You know, I think it really, you know, when you use the two different kinds of lines, so the more narrow on the side and the wider on the top, it really gives a little illusion of movement, like these are coming, you know, are moving forward. I really like that. And again, like I mentioned earlier, you could have filled these in, used that to travel, or maybe you get done and at this point I say, oh, I don't know, you know, maybe I don't like that open. You could certainly work your way back through and fill those in. One other option you have that you could do, and I would do it as I stitched each individual block, but another thing you can do, I'll just do one of these here so you can see what I mean, would be after you finish stitching the block, you're going to stop at one, you know, side or the other. You could come up like this and put a little half-inch line here. And then you would want to do it on the other end, and it would be much easier to do it as you're going, as opposed to this going back at the end. But it kind of changes the look up altogether. So that's a whole nother option, you know, and I mean, I like this because again, it's another, it kind of adds some depth, right? Just adding these two lines, they look like they're going to go underneath everyone. And then of course you would add one here and, you know, on both sides of the other blocks as well. If you know, maybe you're working on a super special quilt and you want to put even more quilting into it, you could also come in and fill in these little sections right here. I mean, that's totally personal preference, and you know, you have to consider how much time you want to put into the quilt. But and then for quickness, we're just gonna sneak right down here. But all of these little things it would be much easier to add as you were stitching the individual little squares. Stitching it afterwards as a second, or like an afterthought, is generally never going to be as quick as doing it as you go. So that, I mean, you can go from, you know, your basic square right here, or you can take it a little farther and kind of change it all up for a little more dense quilting look. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that design, and I will see you next time.